If I never see another drone shot of a speeding car, it'll be too soon. The episode kicks off with one of those uninspired aerial shots that feel more like a mid-tier car commercial than anything remotely cinematic. Not in a sleek, Michael Mann way or even an over-the-top Michael Bay way, just cheap. If this is the kind of aesthetic Amazon is setting up for its inevitable 007 spin-offs, maybe they should rethink the whole endeavor. Now, onto the meat of it. We pick up with Duke pressing Reacher about his conversation with Angel back at the warehouse. Reacher plays dumb, despite his hands still being stained with Angel's blood, because Angel's downfall was his own doing. He wanted to go around Duke and speak directly to Beck, and now he's dead for it. Back at Beck's estate, Reacher finally gets to enjoy that Irish cook's stew, which he's been eyeing for a while, and even exchanges a little French with the maid. But something doesn't add up. Why does Beck employ a full-time mechanic? What exactly is being moved through his operation? Reacher doesn't have the answer yet, but he's starting to put the pieces together. Meanwhile, Neagley checks in with some crucial background info. Paulie was dishonorably discharged for literally punching his captain's eye out, then followed that up by ripping off another guy's finger in prison. Angel? A convicted sex offender. Duke? A dirty cop turned full-time criminal. It's an all-star lineup of degenerates, and Reacher, true to form, insists on handling things alone, brushing off Neagley's offer of help. But Neagley, sharp as ever, already knows what Reacher won't say out loud. He's up against Francis Xavier Quinn. Their old adversary. Reacher calls Duffy next, setting up an escape plan, fresh clothes and a car a mile down the road from Beck's place at midnight. The goal? Clean up the angel-shaped mess at Bizarre Bazaar. And here's where things get weird. One of Reacher's signature superpowers in the books is his internal clock. He can wake up on the dot, no alarms necessary. So why does the show give us a time-lapse of the clock, making it look like he oversleeps? It's a small thing, but in an investigation, details matter. But then, plot twist, it turns out he didn't oversleep at all. He meets up with Duffy, who takes one look at a wet, shirtless Reacher and, well, let's just say she has a reaction. But she's not just there for the view, she insists on joining him. Teresa might be at the warehouse, and she's not leaving without checking. Once inside, they dispose of Angel's body, but not before Duffy uses his thumbprint to unlock his laptop and change the password. Smart move. Reacher helps himself to Angel's sidearm, but their search comes up empty. In a classic Reacher knows best moment, he points out that the cargo containers she's worried about aren't wired for oxygen, so Teresa isn't in there. It's moments like this that make me wish the show would let someone other than Reacher have a moment of brilliance. What follows is a whole lot of blood and elbow grease, literally. Two more of Beck's men show up, and Reacher and Duffy take them out without firing a shot. Reacher impales one of them with a crowbar, subtle, and presumably, that means even more floor scrubbing. Fast forward to morning, and despite a night of freezing water, no sleep, and manual labor, Reacher is fresh as ever. Beck, however, is pissed. His two drivers, the ones Reacher and Duffy just crowbarred, are missing, and a big shipment is due. Reacher volunteers to fill in, but Beck has a different task, escorting Richard into town. Seems Beck wants his son far from whatever's about to go down. Now, here's where things get interesting. Richard, despite being raised in a crime empire, is still just a kid. He visits a vintage toy shop to pick up a Roy Rogers cap gun, the same kind his dad had as a kid. It's a small detail, but one that hints at how Zachary Beck got wrapped up in his gun obsession. Meanwhile, Reacher checks in with Duffy using his makeshift shoe phone, yes, really, and realizes he needs to climb the ranks fast, by taking Duke out. To bait the trap, they send an email from Angel's laptop, claiming to have the last known location of Richard's kidnappers. The address? A DEA safe house. Before we get to that showdown, we finally get a proper hand-to-hand fight scene. 3 college kids, who look at least 35, try to pick a fight with Richard, clearly unaware that Reacher is standing right there. Now, maybe I could believe this if they didn't know who Richard's father was. But these guys know Beck is rich and powerful, and they still decide to trash the kid's expensive collectible and go after him? Questionable. Even more questionable is the fact that they think they can take down a guy built like Reacher. That said, I'll take it. After 2.5 episodes without a proper fight scene, this one delivers. It's brutal, it's efficient, and it ends with Reacher tossing his ice cream cone in the trash after learning it's lavender infusion, an Emmy-worthy reaction. Honestly, finally, Richard opens up. The Becks aren't in charge of their own lives. Some guy named Julius McCabe took over his dad's business 5 years ago. McCabe watches their every move. Oh, and it turns out Paulie, the giant who's been looming over everyone, was actually the one who kidnapped Richard under McCabe's orders. Wait, what? This is where the plot starts to unravel. If McCabe, who Reacher believes is actually Quinn, is controlling Beck's empire and had Richard kidnapped to keep Beck in line, then why was Beck allowed to bring in Reacher without McCabe's approval? Why hasn't McCabe realized Richard was nearly kidnapped again? How has Reacher's cover story held up for this long without anyone raising an eyebrow? The logic starts to crumble under its own weight, but no time to dwell on that. Beck sends Reacher and Duke out to kill Richard's supposed kidnappers. At the DEA safe house, Reacher flips the script, disarming Duke and demanding to know where Teresa is. Duke refuses, saying McCabe would kill him, and that Reacher, being a cop, won't. Reacher settles that debate by putting a bullet in Duke's head. He then stages the scene, fires off rounds, rigs the gas stove for an explosion, and even clocks himself in the face with his own pistol to make it look convincing. By the time he gets back to Beck, he's the only survivor of a deadly shootout. And just like that, Reacher isn't just in Beck's inner circle, he's climbed to Duke's former position. 2 rungs up, just like that. So, where does that leave us? This episode has some great moments. Reacher finally gets to cut loose in a proper fight scene, we get some intriguing backstory on Beck's operation, and the power moves Reacher pulls off to gain Beck's trust are undeniably entertaining. But the plot is starting to stretch a little thin, with certain logical gaps requiring more than just suspension of disbelief. They need a full-on launch into space. Still, if the next episode keeps up this momentum, and maybe let someone other than Reacher be competent for once, we could be in for a strong finish. Let's see where it goes.